What's up everybody, Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Halo Infinite video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down one tip for every single map in Halo Ranked. And on top of that, we're going to be breaking down some of the decision making and strategies that you should be incorporating in every single one of your ranked games. But for even higher advanced content, you can head on over to the GameLeap Halo Infinite website down below. Our highly edited and polished courses show you advanced strategy over every single one of the maps, including decision making and different tips and tricks that you should be including if you want to climb incredibly fast. On top of that, we have weapon guides, movement techs, aim courses, and everything that you can need in order to climb, so you got to go check it out right now down below. Now, the first map that we got to talk about is Aquarius. Now, this is only going to have two modes in Ranked, Slayer and Capture the Flag, and in either of them, it's all about mid-map control on the high ground. The thing that you need to understand is to get to any location on the map, whether it's a power weapon, whether it's just pushing an enemy, you have to cross through that middle section. This means that if you are up there and you control that area, you get to not only gain information about everything that's going on the map, but you get to contest every single bit of advantage. This goes double for Capture the Flag because these are the lanes in which a Capture the Flag person has to travel through. And if you are in that middle section, you can not only defend an enemy that grabs your flag and tries to run it home, but you can also protect an ally that grabs the enemy's flag and tries to run it towards the middle or center of the map. Now, combine both of that with the fact that you also get to contest invisibility, which is one of the most powerful abilities on the entire map, and you have the prime location that you need to control and contest every single time. But far too many players are trying to play the low ground or taking that high ground midpoint and then leaving it right away. It's very important that you always have some sort of control and some sort of presence in that middle point, if at all possible. Now, speaking of Capture the Flag, if you grab that flag and bring it all the way back to base and your flag is not there, you're not going to want to put it right on top where your flag would spawn, but instead in the back of sight, because it's a lot more difficult for enemies to go and contest it back there. And then you can take it from there to the actual flag once y'all retrieve it. But if enemies are doing this, a great way to actually counteract that is go secure the dynamo grenades, because the dynamo grenades are really great at punishing groupings of enemies, and you can basically throw it in the back of sight, and if enemies are grouped up, you can clean them all up very easily. Now, the next map that we got to talk about is Live Fire. Now, Live Fire, right off the bat, the most important thing is that sniper drop, right? Sniper is incredibly important, and it spawns right in the middle, but there's several mistakes that people make right off the bat. The first one is just spamming grenades, like just dumping their entire grenade load, and that's okay if you grab the grenades right off the bat. There are typically grenades that spawn towards the A side specifically. You can throw grenades and then grab more, but you want to make sure that you can punish enemies that do a little bit of damage and tuck into a corner, or you can throw a short grenade to punish a person just beelining for the sniper and going straight down for the drop. Something else that you could do is send multiple enemies down at the drop and bait the enemy sniper to grab the sniper and run down. This could be a really great way to punish the sniper as they fall. Now, if you're the player that runs and grabs the sniper, keep in mind that you can go into the opening of the drop down without actually falling. This allows you to gather information. You can wait and see if enemies are trying to meet you at the bottom, or you can actually body shot melee any enemy that is trying to run down and chase after you. So you have a lot of flexibility there as long as they don't know that you didn't full drop. Now, specifically on Live Fire, Oddball, and Stronghold, it's all about the overshield, and this is incredibly important to take note of. Overshield is what you should be fighting for and contesting, especially if the enemy either one has Oddball and they're all holed up along the Oddball or near the Oddball, or two, they have the majority of the actual Stronghold points. This means that you can go grab Overshield, and then you can use that to go win a decisive team fight on one of these objectives, and then from there, you can try to snowball it into the next point. Oftentimes, you'll see a team lose over and over again where they completely neglect Overshield because they're really trying to tunnel vision on these objectives, and then they'll take an objective only to get wiped from Overshield, and the enemy's going to take it right back, and you really just wasted your time, and the enemy are going to be able to stack that advantage even further. Speaking of stacking your advantage, while we broke down the basics of these maps on the GameLeap website, we have high quality in-depth breakdown showing you the exact strategy and decision making you should be incorporating in every single one of your ranked games. So if you want to level up your knowledge and climb incredibly fast, go check it out right now down below. Now, the next map that we got to talk about is none other than Behemoth. Now, Behemoth is an interesting one because it's Capture the Flag only, and it's a much bigger map than all the other maps. And something else that's notable is that there's a sniper rifle that spawns on each side. Now, while practicing with the sniper is always something great to do, remember that when you grab that sniper, with great power comes great responsibility, because if you get freaking rolled right off the bat when you have that sniper rifle, that is the worst thing you could possibly do. If the enemy gets two snipers, your team's just bound to freaking lose. What you're going to want to do right off the bat is actually utilize the sniper and go set up on one of the two towers. Controlling the towers on the side of the map is actually the most important thing, because this is the areas on the map where you actually get to control all traffic throughout the map. It's kind of similar in that high ground we talked about on Aquarius, but in a very interesting way, because it's actually like parallel to each other and there's two different ones. But if you can have some presence on each one, not only can you guard each other's backs, which makes it very difficult for enemies to push you, but you're just gonna have complete sightline over any of the traversing of that flag, which is really, really important. Now, an underrated item specifically in this mode is definitely the grapple hook. Grapple hook's amazing for many different things. One, you can grab things like overshield and really just take it from enemies when they try to go for it underneath. You can even grab the flag if the flag is off the spawn place, so that's something that you can do to actually get the flag from a more safe position. And I do think that way too many people just utilize the grapple for just movement, which is not bad, but there's a lot of versatility with this item, and it's typically very good to grab it every single time and make a play with it. The next map that we're gonna talk about is definitely Streets, and Streets is very interesting because of the goddamn Spanker. The Spanker spawns in the middle of the map, and it has the capability of completely turning team fights. If you just ignore the Spanker and you go grab that oddball right away, or you go cap the B point right away, I promise you that rocket launcher is gonna do a fair bit more than just spank you. It's gonna absolutely annihilate your team, and you're gonna be able to cap that B site for maybe a second, only to get completely eradicated by this weapon. That's why controlling it or contesting it is very important. Now, what this does not mean is this does not mean just beeline straight to it, grab it, and try to get away, because 90% of the time that's not gonna work. In fact, it's a legitimate strategy to just put pressure mid and guard the Spanker, and if enemies get over eager and make a mistake, you're gonna kill them in that equip time when they try to pick up that Spanker. Now, in general, both sides are gonna have some form of advantaged item that's gonna help them contest that middle space. If we think about the side closer to a stronghold spawn, there's actually the drop shield on the right side you can use to contest mid, and on the other side there is actually that stalker rifle on high ground that can contest the very long angles. Either way, you're going to want to make sure that you're putting ample amounts of pressure and slowly fighting for control, not get too over eager, and if someone wants to go grab it, make sure that they either one, have a thruster so that they can get out a lot easier, and two, you are actively defending them and putting pressure on the people trying to get a free kill on them. Now, also as a general thing, you're going to be able to learn a lot about what an enemy likely has depending on where they came from. For instance, let's say you're holding a stronghold point and an enemy is coming cafe side near shotgun spawn, it's very likely that they grabbed that shotgun, so you need to actually play accordingly to that. You're doing a sort of prediction where you position in a way that is going to put a lot more pressure on them from range, rather than allowing them to get up close and personal, which is exactly what they want to do. Now, I do think for oddball, holding police department is probably the most powerful place you can hold, especially if you put ample amounts of people on the A point and towards the B side where they can actually contest the Spanker from mid. And you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself far looser and much more towards the Spanker as the Spanker gets closer to spawn, because if the enemy want to kind of rush in, take the oddball, shoot, you could even give them the oddball if that means controlling that Spanker, because then you could just turn right back around, wipe them, and then you have the Spanker for the next rounds, and the enemy can't get that in order to wipe you out of police department. Now, the next map we gotta talk about is a personal favorite of mine, Bazaar, and the first thing that you gotta do is control that headshot hitbox. So oftentimes what you wanna do is actually put yourself down the stairs reverse style so that you're barely peeking out and contesting that high ground. You do wanna fight for open space and put pressure into enemies so that they don't have open lines of sight to everything in the center of the map, especially all the stuff that you wanna control, like overshield, grapple, and Spanker. But you also don't wanna be peeking out your whole body, because remember, headshot doesn't do any extra damage, so you could position accordingly. Now, I did briefly mention Spanker, overshield, and grapple, and each one of these items are so damn important. Specifically, if you got grapple, you can actually grab overshield and Spanker from complete safety, which is very, very good. And of course, Spanker has the capability of just winning team fights by itself, and that overshield can also win team fights by itself, and they are in opposite positions. This is why in the beginning, instead of just beelining to one of these, oftentimes you want to get in a position to where you can pressure out any enemies that are going for one of these two objectives. This is what the beginning of a match should always be centered around: not grabbing the flag, not going psycho into the enemy backline, and not beelining to these weapons. It's all about poking and pressuring, gaining control. On top of that, remember, the dynamo grenades are near the middle, and that's something that you can actively contest because it's very, very good and underrated to control a lot of these areas like double doors and things like that. Now, just remember that this map has both Capture the Flag and Slayer, and they're going to play out quite a bit different from one another. Capture the Flag is all about team fights and fighting with your team to try to win and wipe the enemy, and typically you have to do this twice in order to capture that flag. But Slayer is all about playing for your life, and typically you can play a lot more tucked in. You can try to play for individual value. You can even play under the enemy, trying to get a really interesting angle on them with things like the Mangler and the shotgun. You don't necessarily have to have full-fledged team fights all the time with Slayer, unlike Capture the Flag, where it's often about playing 100% with your team every single time. Even though Slayer, you typically should be playing at least with one person, if you have a power weapon or some sort of advantage, you could often bait enemies into you and get some free value that way using natural cover. Now, the last map that we actually got to talk about is Recharge, and Recharge actually has 3 modes: Slayer, Oddball, and Stronghold. Now, something that you need to understand about specifically Oddball is that there's 2 predominant places that people play. People play near edge by sword so that they can drop it off and reset, and people play up top in the high ground near the shock rifle in that cubby. Now, if enemies wanted to play top inside, oftentimes they're giving up invisibility and they're giving up sword, and you can just go gain both of those and just freaking clap the enemy. You're gonna get at least 2 kills going in with invisibility and sword, and it's gonna be a pretty easy take. That's really why I think in general playing edge is a lot better, because at least you get control of that sword and you don't allow enemies to get it, even if you could potentially still get killed by invisibility. But if you do want to play up top, just keep in mind the spawn times of these items, because sometimes, especially right after you win a team fight, you want to actually leave and move and rotate out of there in anticipation of these other weapons spawning, but you are pretty far away, so it's going to be difficult for you to go contest over there. Now, if enemies are playing edge near sword, something that you should try to control is one, Thruster. Thruster is very good at edge because you can just boot people off if you want to, even though it's kind of nearby, so enemies might have control of it already. But you could also get the shock rifle, which could definitely give you an advantage from range and clear out some of those longer sight lines. That being said, invisibility is still the best way to force enemies out of that area, because an invisibility person can go in, get some extra information, and also get an advantage start to the fight, especially up against a sword user, because one of the most important things you need is information about where that sword user is at all times. Now, in general, the most important thing about the map Recharge is fighting initially for that mid control. Fight for that space. And the way that you do that is take the high ground and often jiggle behind high ground cover, putting pressure in the enemies. If you have a game where you don't contest the high ground up against a good player, they're gonna peek out of this high ground, whatever you're doing, whether you're going for invisibility or you're going for oddball mid or you're trying to travel anywhere on the map, and you're just gonna be eating chunks of damage and you're probably gonna get killed for free. The reason that it's so strong up there is because they have perfect information of the entire battlefield, and it's very hard for them to get pushed. So if they take damage, they can just peek behind cover and then they're fine. And if you want to go chase them, who knows what they have? Plasma pistol, Mangler, energy sword. It's very difficult to make a play on these people. That's right, it's really important to fight for that high ground and keep presence on the high ground and control of mid as much as possible throughout the entire course of the match. Now, I know I talked a lot in this video, however, we really only scratched the surface of these maps. And if you want more in-depth breakdowns, breaking down the strategy step by step that you should be incorporating into your ranked games, you gotta go check out the GameLeap website down below that includes tons of highly polished in-depth guides. Over 30 and more are being added every single day, so you gotta go check it out right now down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed this video. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.